Hey guys, welcome back to episode 27 of the Big Bros podcast. My name is Ilan, and I'm joined by my lovely friend and also my co-host. But he's just more than that. His name's Jeremy Tussier. How are we?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm good. I wanted to change up the intro a little bit. How have you been? Talk to me.
Well, mate, I'm well. Lovely Saturday morning. Can't complain. Ready to get going. So, find ourselves today, episode 27.
Correct.
And
correct.
we're pushing along quite nicely, aren't we?
We are, and today's topic is a little bit philosophical, I'd say, but I wouldn't say it has to be, and not in the negative way, and that is the arrival fallacy. So for those listening, you might be thinking, what are they talking about? What does that even mean? We will get to all of that, but let's just say it involves attaching your happiness to a future goal. Let's just say it's that, right? Now, bit of a common thing, I think, that affects every single human. I think most humans. I think something that we're vulnerable to when we're younger. So we're going to be speaking about our own personal experiences with it, some of the things that might cause one to feel the arrival fallacy, and some solutions, you could say, or some things and tools that can help you recognize how to get out of it. So these are just our perspectives, just what we've learned, some of our personal experiences. So we're keen to get into it. Jeremy, I'm going to first outline what the arrival fallacy is, and you're going to tell me if you've ever heard that idea before.
Go on, spit it out.
So, as I briefly alluded to, it's the idea that you will only achieve long-term happiness after you achieve that long-term goal of yours. Think of that brand new shiny car, achieving financial freedom, buying a new home, or rather owning your own home. It's things like that, achievements, milestones that you can tick off. But you tell yourself that on the journey to achieving these milestones, I'm not allowed to be happy, or rather I will only be happy once I tick off these boxes. Have you ever heard of that? Yeah,
definitely. Ties into last week's episode to some extent, doesn't it? Where we spoke about finding yourself, and we spoke about how, for those of you that haven't listened yet, urge you to go and listen to it, because it does help to, listen to that and then come to this one. But it does relate in a way that, the finding yourself was talking about always looking inside and hoping that there was something within you that would give you that self-fulfillment. And here we're talking about how, again, that fulfillment is coming from something, again, exterior, but like something that you need to not necessarily work for. Because the finding yourself aspect, whilst that's like looking in and thinking that something is there within you to give you that fulfillment, it doesn't necessarily require much work and effort, because you think something's there. It just needs to, come out and present itself. This is kind of similar, because it's saying that something is out there in the exterior and in the environment, and I need to just somehow get that to be happy, rather than like actually work towards what it is that's making me happy. What is it that's making me fulfilled and experience meaningful things? It's just fast, quick approaches to trying to get fulfillment and happiness. That's how I look at the finding yourself element, and that's how I look at the element of the arrival fallacy here. What is it that can just give me that instant gratification, perhaps, or that gratification on a grand scale, and it kind of wipes away everything else that you might be experiencing along the way. It's I know, like you said before, it's not necessarily the notion of you're not allowed to be happy along the way, but it's saying that you will only be happy once you reach that grand scale thing, that grand scale milestone. Only then will you achieve that happiness. And we touched on last week the gold medal syndrome. Kind of relates here as well, doesn't it?
It does, for sure, because what you mentioned there before is the fact that when we, in a sense, delay our own happiness, our decision to be happy for the achievement of a long-term goal, you're also kind of delaying that short-term gratification. And usually speaking, that's a good thing, right? You delay short-term gratification when you put your phone down and you study. You delay short-term gratification when you decide not to spend money that you've received just from your latest paycheck to save. But what's interesting here, though, and I'll tie it to the gold medal syndrome, is that even when you've worked and delayed and put all your hard work into achieving a goal and you've achieved it. And it's a very nice, and it can give you fulfillment. You might still sometimes feel as though, shit, well, I'm not really happy. And then the gold medal syndrome does kick in, because then you're thinking, well, I've achieved this. This is a very honorable goal. It gave me, that sugar hit of satisfaction, of happiness that I achieved it, which is all great. But then part of you's thinking, well, where to next? So the whole thing with gold medal syndrome is that athletes tend to experience a lot of emotions, like things like anxiety, loneliness, low self-esteem. You've just won a 100-meter sprint. You may have just beaten set a world record at the Olympics, at the Commonwealth Games. And now you're thinking, well, what's next? And I think that's just something really tied into us as humans. But the point I wanted to make next, though, is that achieving things or working towards long-term goals are not a bad thing. You should be working towards long-term girls. Maybe long-term girls as well. Who knows? But long-term goals.
Yeah.
Long-term goals are still very important. The thing is, it can give you purpose. But then you got to ask yourself, are the goals that I'm trying to achieve, are they intrinsic or extrinsic? Because the research says that things like meaningful relationships, things that are internal, things like taking on, meaningful responsibility, taking care of those around you, contributing to the world, that won't give you happiness per se. It might give you fulfillment, but it'll give you meaning. Whereas when we think about more external things, or at least what the research says, is those external achievements, like getting that new Gucci handbag or getting those great new pairs of shoes or whatever the case is, anything that's external and materialistic will not satisfy you in the same way.
Yeah.
And perhaps we delude ourselves into thinking that once we do achieve that, that's when we can be happy. And I think that's the reason we wanted to do this episode largely, is because, then we ask ourselves, what's the port of calling for young people? How is this going to affect young people? And then I thought about it, and it's like, when I was younger, and I still do this now, is I feel like I delay my ability to be happiness now subconsciously, and then it becomes conscious. But I think, okay, I have to do this, and then I can be happy. When I achieve this, when I finish my degree, I'll be happy. When I go to the gym, I can't be happy during my gym session. I have to be happy only after it, because I finished it. And I feel like I do it all the time.
Really? Even with things like the gym now?
Yeah, but I love it. But but I love going to the gym. That's the thing.
Okay.
So and that's why I want to talk about solutions a bit later on. But what my experience with it is that I sometimes tell myself I might be happy now, but I'll be even happier when I finish it. I'll be happy when I get to Friday, because then I can think about all the things I can do on the weekend. Then Friday comes and I think, all right, I'm so excited for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because Saturday's there and I have the ability to, I don't have work tomorrow. So what can I do to enjoy myself, to relax, to have a good time in my weekend?
Yeah.
And then you're almost like telling yourself, I will be even happier than I am now. My current state is not going to be filled with as much happiness when I reach a certain day or achieve certain thing.
It comes back to presence, doesn't it? Not potentially feeling present in that moment of what it is you're doing, which is why it's so, again, important, which, we've harped on about many times, but important to reinforce that it is so critical to do the things you love and to be around the people you enjoy. And even if you're in a moment, because look, the reality is we're not always going to be so happy-go-lucky, so loving of the time we're having at school currently, or the time we're having at university, or the job we're currently in. Not everything's going to be rainbows and butterflies. So I want to really make that at the forefront, because sometimes I think, we obviously sit here and say that, it's important to do what you're doing and do what you love, but it's not always going to be the case. But with that being said, in those moments where things aren't necessarily going your way, or in those moments where it might not be where you want to be just yet, remind yourself of maybe where you're going to get to, right? And that therefore might indirectly help you feel a little bit more content in the situation you're currently in, or cracking a joke with people in the workforce about the situation you're in, and then kind of bonding over that shared experience as well. So whilst it is important to think about that bigger picture about the arrival, essentially, right? And think about the happiness you will get then, I think it's I think that can also indirectly help the situation you might be in. Does that make sense?
It does, and it actually reminds me a lot of a conversation I had with my mum a few months ago in the midst of like my, studies and my exam season.
Basically, I just think it's a good coping strategy at times.
Yeah.
In times where you're not in the place you want to be in.
Yeah, I get you. The reason I want to bring this point up is because it actually something similar like that happened to me, which was I was complaining, or not complaining, I was speaking to my mum and I was saying I cannot wait to finish my uni degree. I cannot wait to finally be in full-time work and not have to worry about assignments and everything.
Exactly what I was thinking of for myself as well.
And then my mum responds to me and says, you say this now, but one day you'll be in full-time work.
And you'll wish that you were in uni again?
Correct.
Yeah.
And with me, I was thinking about it and I said, but it's because the whole thing about last week, I kind of was preaching about do what you can tolerate the best.
Yeah.
Because everything that you do, no matter how much you love, as you said, is going to be filled with shit and pebbles in your shoes along the way. And for me, I was thinking, well, you know what? I probably feel like I would enjoy full-time work more because I've achieved my goal. I've achieved that uni degree that gives me the piece of paper that allows me to practice my specified domain. Now, my mum made an excellent point, which is you think you'll be happy then, so but rather you might be even unhappier then. You might be happier for sure. There's no discounting the possibility that I might be truly happier when I work full time and I can, earn a bit more money. But she had a more than valid point when she said that you got to try and look at the benefits that you're experiencing now. You don't have to go to a 9 to 5 every day. You've got that flexibility. You have still time to see your friends more than you would when you've got a full-time job. There's a lot of perks that are available to me now that I'm kind of overlooking because I'm so fixated on my long-term goal. And it got me thinking, and I thought, yeah, she's 100% right. Now, something to take away from that conversation was that I didn't feel like I had to scrap any of my long-term goals, but I could give myself permission to actually enjoy the journey and enjoy where I'm at now. You don't have to feel guilty for enjoying a journey. And I know it sounds so cliche and something you'd hear from fucking Eat, Pray, Love or some shit like that, but
the cliches are true.
But the cliche is true
because they've got trueness in them. Hey?
100%. And the reality about that sort of thing is happiness is a choice. And look, we're probably going to rush through just because we were so keen on speaking about these solutions, but there's probably a few ways you can navigate it, I suppose. But yeah, back to the point is you can make the decision to be happy in the moment. It's entirely up to you.
Yeah.
And it's all about changing your frame of thinking.
That's what it is. It's the frame of thinking, because you shouldn't necessarily think, okay, it's black and white. It's grey. There's going to be grey area. So the arrival fallacy is important to recognize that the milestone is not necessarily the fulfillment. Whilst it can be that moment of being potentially happier, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's all or nothing. And I think that's the approach I want to take to this. It's not all or nothing. You need to have the ebb and flow in terms of getting there and feeling the happiness along the journey. But it's also okay to recognize sometimes that, you might be a certain level of happiness that might be greater to current level of happiness when you do get there, which is a perfect correlation to what you're experiencing with uni and what I'm experiencing too.
Well, that was my next question is it's not like you or I have bought our first home or we've achieved these, memorable milestones that would give us the arrival fallacy, but you can still experience it with little things or things that you still work towards within a quarterly period in a year. So my question to you is Jeremy, do you feel like you've experienced that sort of thing? And if you have, I want to hear about it.
Well, I think we're experiencing it now, aren't we? Just by doing the podcast is a prime example. So often we've thought about and we've said to one another, just imagine, one day we might be at a level where hopefully we're reaching more people, or hopefully some people are taking more out of it than what they already are. And you hope for maybe more messages of appreciation, things like that, and those times will bring us happiness, and they will bring us maybe more happiness at times than what we might be experiencing now. But it doesn't mean that right now isn't a moment where we shouldn't be happy as well. Because I know that I definitely am, and I know that you are too. And that's why it's so important to reinforce that the journey is way more important than the destination. And again, it is such a cliche, but it's a cliche because it rings true. It rings true because as humans, we want to feel like we're fulfilling, we're providing meaning. And this is what it's about, mate. This is what it's about. We can't be fixated on the destination, because then you're just not present in the moment of where we're at now. And that's something that, I will try to remind myself at in times where I feel like it's maybe a little bit dull for me, whether it is, whether it's about uni or whether it's about extracurricular things like podcasting or like the gym. There's going to be times of ebb and flow and where it's a little bit down, but the greater purpose is there. And when you've got that greater purpose and that greater understanding of why you're doing it, it's so much easier to remain happy along the journey. So much easier. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I suppose so. I think you're right. The journey is the most important thing. There's a saying that goes in sports, defense wins championships. I think the journey can... Okay, I can't actually think of a quote, so that's embarrassing. But that cliche rings true, as does the whole journey being more important than the destination also ring true as well. I think especially for your own mental health and well-being. Something I wanted to touch on though quickly is, we clearly sometimes feel arrival fallacy. It might be built into us. For some, we might feel it more than others, especially if we're working towards a certain goal. And it got me thinking. And I thought, if someone's at the point where they're feeling really poor, like bad levels of arrival fallacy, they're feeling incredibly dissatisfied, they're anxious, they're potentially even feeling some sort of feeling of depression and thinking, well, what was the point? Because this hasn't fulfilled me much like I thought it would. I started thinking about what was going on in that person's life during that journey. Were they just completely sacrificing everything that they wanted to do just in pursuit of this? Was this journey, in a way, covering up maybe some underlying mental health issues? And they were able to almost bottle it in. And they told themselves, once I achieve this, I can then be happy. This will solve my depression. This will solve my anxiety. It will solve my overthinking. And it will solve my attachment issues. But then what happens is we achieve it. And perhaps all the mental health issues and symptoms and feelings that you've been bottling up for so long come out. And they come out and after bottling it in for so long, you've given yourself permission to only be happy now. But you're not, because you've allowed your happiness to be dictated by something external. So I thought that was something really important to kind of note, is that a lot of times we can kind of bottle up mental health issues and they can come spewing out as soon as we finally do achieve that goal. But I remember there was a podcast where Chris Williamson, host of Modern Wisdom, one of our favourite podcasters, went on Joe Rogan. And he made a very valuable point. Now, I don't think it was a direct reference to the arrival fallacy, but Chris Williamson made the point that just because something is hard to attain does not necessarily mean that it is inherently valuable. And I thought, well, far out, that is very true. Seems a bit obvious, Just because something's hard to attain doesn't mean that it's necessarily more valuable. And I thought about it, and I thought about why socially there might be an influence to feel arrival fallacy. And then I thought about is all the external things that we're told to achieve, they're socially we allowed them in social context.
Yeah.
Getting that great job, the great Gucci handbag, things that are going to be looked more favorably because they've got a higher price tag. Inevitably, materialistic things and achievements and milestones like that are looked really favorably upon in society, which is not a bad thing. You should be working towards things like that if you believe they'll enhance your life. But no, they won't actually provide you meaning, especially if they're kind of external things.
Yeah.
But additionally to that point is that I think it's very hard when we're attached to what kind of society will promote. Now, I'm not blaming society or anything. I think everyone's got free will and they should practice that free will as best as they can to the best of their abilities. But what I am saying is that I think we're almost set up to fail in times because we're told that we have to achieve the X, Y, and Z, and then we can be happy. Because as soon as we get told that socially these are things that you should be striving for, we're also told, as in that quote, that they might be hard to attain, and that they're just because it's hard to attain, it's more valuable. And it's not necessarily true. I think
that's a fantastic point. It's like, go for a walk at a shopping center, or go for a walk down Rodeo Drive in LA if you live in LA, or go to Chatston if you're in the southeast of Melbourne, and you'll soon realize that the things that are all on the billboards there are those things that might be seen as hard to attain. The Balenciaga, the Louis Vuitton, and all of that. Like, that's what you see on all of the billboards. So when you're walking through and you're young and you're thinking, and you're seeing that for the first time, you're thinking, wow, like, this is what's so glorified. Not many people have it when they're walking around. So the ones that do have it, they must be so happy. They've achieved it. They've got that thing. And that's why it's so nice to hear that quote from Chris and Joe, because it's so refreshing. It's telling us, and
our mates Chris and Joe
can only dream, but it's telling us that, you know what, it's actually not that fulfilling. It's not that deep, mate, and it's all kind of it's just glorified. But I don't know why it is glorified. Like it is glorified, and this is me kind of backtracking a little bit here and just thinking out loud, but like, why is it necessarily glorified? Because why are those things glorified? Maybe it's just because marketing, like relationships and fulfillment and stuff, is not sexy. Maybe it's just not sexy.
Yeah, no, really good point. We don't, so society-wise, we don't tend to favor the things that aren't sexy, like, gritting it out through a long relationship, or, comforting a crying child at 3 a.m. The things that in the long run might end up being fulfilling and meaningful. Those things aren't really glorified. The things that are cool, shiny objects are the things that will give us a sugar hit, but they won't also give us happiness. So it raises the question, if we have these mental models where we're attaching our happiness to a future event, where it's almost a recipe for disaster at times, what would you tell someone who's a younger listener?
Yeah. I would tell them to, again, surround themselves around the things that they want to be doing. And you might not know what you want to be doing at a younger age, in your early 20s, in your later teens. You might not know. I was in school, I didn't know yet. And I always thought, okay, when I finish school, I'm going to be in uni. And in uni, I'm going to have more free time. I'm not going to be needing to nut out these VCE exams. I'm going to be doing what I want. But then now when I'm in uni, you're thinking, okay, well, when I finish my degree and then I'm finally working full time, then I'm actually going to really, truly be doing what I want out there in the big wide world. And it's not going to feel like a chore for me. So I feel like it's very easy to think about that destination, to think about that arrival in our early 20s and in our later teens. Something that we've all done, something that I was definitely doing. But what's made me really erase that from my mind, essentially, or try to be more present in moments along this journey, is putting myself in situations that are different, opening myself to new experiences, new people along the way. And naturally, you're going to be more influenced by your environment, and you're naturally going to gravitate towards what it is you like to be doing and who it is you like to be hanging out with. And once you've got that, the journey is so much more easier to go on and to walk upon, because you're happy with the people that you're around. You're happy with the experiences you're experiencing, even if you've got that greater goal in mind. Because we've sat here and we've said it's important to keep that greater goal in mind. It's important to work towards something, but we still need to be present in the moment, in the journey along the way. So that's my greatest tip, is to put yourself in situations where you're around people, you're experiencing things, whether it be a hobby, whether it just be something completely novel and out of the blue, whether it be traveling, you will naturally gravitate towards what makes you happier. And when you gravitate towards what makes you happier, the journey becomes that more effortless.
Well said. What I would say to someone who's a bit younger though is life is fucking hard, and that's not something nice to hear. Is that, and maybe that's something I would tell Ilan when he was 18, is because I had this idea that things are easier than they are. Maybe grown-ups over-exaggerate a little bit, but it's not the case. The reality is it's going to be difficult. Things are going to be really tough. You're going to have really stressful periods, and life will tend to become more stressful as it goes. The problem there is we forget how to be happy, or we forget to choose to be happy. So we end up just letting ourselves be happy only when we achieve those things, those milestones. Those milestones almost are the things that keep us going or encourage us to keep on going through life when things get really stressful. Now, knowing that happiness might not be on the other side of that rainbow is a good warning, especially if you're chasing external things and materialistic things. Rather, it might be worth asking yourself if what you're doing is somehow going to fulfill you intrinsically more than materialistically. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're working really hard to get that new job promotion. Say you've got a family as well. Two examples. One example is I want to attain this new job promotion because I'll get more money, and if I've got more money, I can buy that new shiny car, or I can go on that really expensive holiday. How does that differ from someone working towards this goal? I want to get a promotion so I earn more money so I can provide my kids with endless experiences where we can travel together, I can help them and feel as though I can support them in any way possible. You're still working towards the same goal in both examples. You're still trying to get that job promotion, get more money, but your focus of your happiness is really different. You're trying to nurture a relationship in the latter. And it's funny about humans. We tend to be the biggest predictor of our happiness are the relationships we have around us and how much we nurture them. That's pretty interesting. But it shows even then our approach can be so pivotal in whether we decide to suffer along this journey of whatever we're trying to achieve. And that's the thing. Knowing that as long as you've got the right mental models in place, knowing that you can achieve a goal and you can achieve something but frame it in a way where it might be favorable to your meaningful relationships around you, that might be the remedy to avoid arrival fallacy. Don't you reckon? Because every time you've provided for someone else or you do something nice for someone else, it's not like a sugar hit feeling. It's not like a short term.
It's more gratifying. It's not like having a coffee in the morning that gives you a gratification of like a few hours before getting a crash. It's like having
low GI versus high GI foods, eh?
Yeah, it's like having that, or it's like having a cold shower, which might feel absolutely hard in that moment, which is fitting for a lot of things that can give you long-term gratification, because not everything worth having, not everything. What is it? Not
because something's hard to attain doesn't necessarily mean it's necessarily more valuable.
No, but I was gonna say the hard things to achieve in life aren't necessarily like easy to achieve. Like the things that are worth getting aren't necessarily easy to achieve. So if you want to achieve like that longevity or that, that gratification that lasts a long period of time, doing something hard in that moment can get that. Like that cold water exposure in the morning might be hard in the moment, but it'll make you feel more alert throughout the whole day or for a long period of time, versus just a coffee in the morning, which will give you that 2 hours of alertness, and then you're going to get a crash, right? And I think we need a great solution to think about for how to avoid that arrival fallacy. And this goes back to what I was saying before about, surrounding yourself around what it is you love and what it is you want to enjoy, is think to yourself, what is your toolbox essentially? Do you have like a toolbox of things that give you that happiness and that fulfillment in times that might be a little bit tough for you? Because we're all going to have that mental time where we're struggling, or when, you know, we are on a good life trajectory and we are working towards something positive that we know we want to achieve, but we're just having really down times and a really down period perhaps. What is it that's in your toolbox that you can come back to that you know can help you quell that moment of unease?
So what's in your toolbox? So like what helps you fall in love with that journey?
Well, for me, it's my friends. I know that my friends mean the absolute world to me. And in times where, you know, and this goes, it's friends, it's relationships, it's everything like that in general. My relationships to me are my everything. And I know that, you know, when times are tough for me personally, mentally, that is what I want to surround myself around with most. I don't want to go into a shell. I don't want to hibernate. I want to be around people, whether it's, you know, my friends, my girlfriend, my family, whatever it is. It's that. It's also nature. I like getting out into nature, going for a walk. I like moving my body, exercise, you know, gym, again, walking. Like, so nature, exercise, relationships. Those are the three things that I'll always want to come back to in time. So that's what's in my toolbox. And that's what helps me maintain presence and positivity along the journey, even if it is something great that I do want to achieve eventually. What do you reckon's in your toolbox?
Mine's very mental focused in that I tell myself that happiness isn't around the corner. I really think that convo that I had with my mum really helped my approach. For a long time, I was very just keen to get finished with uni. I still am, but I've tried to enjoy the little things more. The little things, that's the key thing there. It's the ability to maybe sleep an hour longer than if I would if I had a full-time job. Right? It's that sort of flexibility. So it's the mental models of reminding myself that happiness isn't necessarily on that other side. But it's knowing that the journey I'm on is actually exciting in and of itself.
Yeah.
Right? Depending on, you know, and I'm not speaking just in terms of my career. This could be in anything. Knowing that the journey you're on, there needs to be something intrinsic and valuable within it for you to want to tolerate it and want to suffer through it. Or not suffer, but to really maybe sacrifice a lot of your time and energy to devote to it.
Yeah.
It needs to be something that, as we spoke about last week, on a baseline level, you should want to enjoy it. You're not dreading it. You'll recognize there's going to be mundane things during it, but you do it because you know it's going to fulfill you. It's just like I said last week, I love psychology. I love studying it. What I don't love is having to watch a lecture when I'm like feeling really sleep deprived and haven't had my coffee.
Yeah.
Small problem, third world problem to have. Get it?
First world problem to have.
First world problem to have. Yeah, I'm a bit tired this morning if you can't tell. But not everything that you're going to love on that journey is always going to be fun. And I think that's really, really crucial to remember. These are truisms for a reason.
I love it. I'm going to read out something that's reminding me of, because I think this is a nice way to sum up what it is we're talking about. And that's, when you're younger, you think happiness is a consequence of just ticking boxes. You think it comes after you achieve or attain things. When you find that girl, get the career, achieve status, get the fast car, get the big house, or start a family. These are all great things, but they're really just milestones. They're the markers of a greater process made up of different steps to get there. And the truth is, most of life is not the thrill of finally getting there. Most of it is just being somewhere along the way.
That's our podcast in a 30-second format, essentially.
Happy Tuesday, everyone.
Happy Tuesday, guys.